Are we ready for smart gadgets to take control of our homes?
And the new NBN rollout map is here, but will you get it? Welcome to Vertical Hold, the tech show where each channel surf through the headlines in search of the big picture. I'm Alex Kidman, joined by a man who was born in the Highlands of Scotland over 1,000 years ago and cannot die, Adam McTurner. Adam, what's new in tech?
Windows 8 take-up has finally surpassed XP according to stats from Net Market Share. Windows 8 and 8.1 combined snuck in at 18%, ahead of XP on 13% and macOS at 11%.
Optus is now selling gadget insurance directly to its customers. $13 a month buys you protection against theft and accidental damage internationally with no ongoing contract, although it's not all sunshine and roses because there are some exclusions, most notably fire. Here's a quick tip: keep your smartphones and tablets away from the fire.
Tickets have gone on sale for next year's Australian Penny Arcade Expo, or PAX. The Games Expo that stops the nation is on the weekend before Melbourne Cup again, so get in early because tickets tend to sell out fast.
The latest scam to hit the net suggests that you've got some kind of Christmas parcel awaiting you if you'll only click on the link. Naturally, of course, you shouldn't click on the link because it'll lead to either malware, ransomware, or both. So if you do get an email like that, the best advice is to use the best bit of AV equipment you've got, namely your brain, and call the companies or friends responsible to find out what's actually going on. So Adam, those Windows 8 figures, they seem pretty encouraging, but is that a question of growing popularity, or do you just think people are replacing laptops that happen to come with it?
It's kind of hard to say, and the figures have been in flux a bit as well. Those figures last time had XP a lot higher, and they've had a correction. It looked like they were taking some stats from a website in China that tended to be favoured by people who used XP machines. I'm not sure the exact details, but it was basically throwing out the numbers. So this is the correction. I think these are more accurate figures. And I'd say it's a bit of both. If you go out and buy a computer now, it's getting much harder to get Windows 7. You really need to know that it's still available and argue with the person in the shop or know how to downgrade. So I think a lot of people have just come to terms with the fact that I'm buying a new computer, I'm getting Windows 8.
Yeah, I mean, I think it has improved as an operating system, but there's still a fairly strong backlash against it, because if you don't buy a touchscreen system to go with it, then you miss out on a lot of the features, or you're stuck in a kind of slightly less than optimal space. And what about this thing of gadget insurance? Do you reckon it's worth paying a bit extra to secure your smartphone and tablet?
How much did you say it was?
It's $13 a month. But you've also got to be an Optus customer, and the products have to have come from Optus. So you'd have to be on like an Optus iPhone contract or an Optus Galaxy Note contract or whatever.
Yeah.
And then $13 a month. Over a 2-year contract, I did the maths a bit earlier,
So
if you had to do one claim, it'd cost you about $360.
Yeah. This is the man who smashed his iPhone
device.
5 screen. First time I've ever smashed a phone. Thankfully, it was 3 days away from retirement. But I'm now nursing my iPhone 6 with kid gloves, and I've gone out and bought a case for my iPhone for the very first time, because it's occurred to me that the amount of money I've sunk into this thing, or the amount it would cost me to buy a replacement. So if you think you're going to break your phone, it sounds like a good deal. But like I said, I've got through the 2G,
Who
3,
plans
4,
to break their
and 5.
phone though?
Exactly. I got through 3 days, within 3 days of owning all those iPhones without ever smashing any of them. So it's a tough one. Think about how much you'd have to cough up if you broke it.
It's also worth checking, of course, if you've got existing insurance for travel or for home and content,
that's the thing,
whether or not that stuff's covered as well, what the excess would be, whether the premiums would go up or not. It might not be. It might be a great deal for some people, and if you're really accident prone, it could really pay off. I'm sure Optus is hoping not too many people are, but at the same time, it might be, stuff you don't need because you're actually already covered without realising it. Adam, for about 100 years, there wasn't really that much change in the light bulb, but we're starting to see the emergence of a lot of smart lights. Now, what exactly is a smart light?
Well, the smart light is sort of the next piece of the puzzle, I think, in home automation. You've had things like smart power points that you could turn on and off remotely and other bits and pieces, but the smart light builds a lot of this into the light bulb. We've seen a few already, the Lifix ones, a couple of others, where these things either connect to an adapter or connect to your home network. So in a nutshell, it means you can turn your lights on and off from your smartphone, which is a little bit wanky, but it's a nice trick. But you can then integrate it into other things, like, okay, I want you to turn it off when I'm not home. I want you to dim it in the evenings. I maybe want to change the color. So that's next. It's that next level of tying in the house around you into your smart ecosystem.
Yeah, it's tying in pieces to do intelligent action. So you get up in the middle of the night, a motion sensor senses that you're moving, so it flicks on the lights that lead to the toilet, that kind of thing, where it's actually got some genuine kind of utility. So who are the big players here?
Well, there's the Australian one, Lifix, LIFX. They've been a long-term player in the smart light bulbs, although they promised a lot and they've sort of been slow to deliver on some of that, and it's not really tied into a wider ecosystem. Philips and Belkin are the two ones that have the broader offering. I'd say Belkin is the big one because it's not just about lights. Belkin has its Wemo ecosystem, and it has power points, motion detectors. They're launching the smart light bulbs in Australia, and in the US they've just launched the Wemo Maker, which is basically a smart adapter with wires that will connect to basically any mechanical device. So you can wire up to your garage door, to your side gate. So now you're not just reliant on them saying, hey, we're going to build it into a coffee machine, but you can say, I want to build it into that. And if you've got enough nous to figure out how to wire up a few things, you can automate pretty much anything in your house.
That could be interesting in Australia. I mean, the Wemo stuff's pretty clever. I've got a bit of it myself, and I mostly like it, but it's this interesting mix of stuff you can self-install. So the bulbs are an interesting case. They are just bulbs. You plug them in, you screw them into your Edison or bayonet style light fitting, and they just, they connect up via Wi-Fi, and in theory, they just work. We might get to that in a minute. But
we will get to that in a minute.
They've also got stuff like their switches, which you need an electrician, and not just a case of, I think I'll do this myself. Legally, you are required to have an electrician.
Don't go doing that, girlfriend.
Install, even though you can buy this stuff in a hardware store, you shouldn't go installing it yourself. There are legal requirements around this, and they're quite sensible ones because, frankly, electricity is scary stuff. But all these devices are great in theory. The practical, certainly from my experience, and I suspect from yours, is a little bit different because all of them connect through just via Wi-Fi, unlike a lot of other home automation solutions where you do run actual cables, where you get an installer and you have a physical connection. These are all Wi-Fi enabled, which in theory makes them easy to hook up, but can make them, in my experience, a bit interesting to control. What's your experience been like?
The lights are a pain in the ass. Controlling your lights from your phone is really a pain, especially when everyone else in the house doesn't want to mess around with it and may not be as excited about it as you are. Some people like to just flick a light switch, and they will tell you straight out, I liked it when I could just flick a light switch. So I think if you're looking
at... Well, technically speaking, you still can, but
yeah,
I know what you mean.
I think if you're looking at the bulbs, you maybe should be looking at the smart light switches as well, so you've got the option to control it from the light switch or from the phone. If you need to pull your phone out of your pocket because the dimmer switch on the wall, for example, will stop working with these things, and you'll have to do your dimming from the phone, unless maybe you get a smart switch that's designed to handle that. So if the people around you are going to get annoyed with the fact that they now need a phone to do a lot of this stuff, you might find that getting switches and phones that can work together could be a smart long-term investment in terms of household harmony.
Yeah, the other thing is, and to be fair to them, they are constantly updating them. The switches that I've got and the devices that I've got have had a lot of firmware updates, and the apps have had a lot of updates. But it seems every time they change the app, I have to rediscover my switches, and it varies as to which side of the smartphone fence works better. About half the time the Android app is better at finding things, the other half of the time the iOS app is better at finding things. And I'm lucky in that I run a dual smartphone household, so I can kind of flick between the two if I need to. But it can be surprisingly frustrating when all you want to do is switch a damn light off. And to be fair with the switches themselves do work as switches. You can still go up and thump a thing on a wall and that'll happen. But it can be surprisingly frustrating when these things don't work, and it can be kind of tricky working out why not.
So Alex, the next stage of the NBN rollout maps are up. Did you win the NBN lottery this time?
Oh, heck no. But then I knew up front that I wasn't going to, because I'm in an HFC cable area.
So am I.
And the one thing the new NBN rollout maps and new NBN rollout numbers completely ignore is HFC, which we'll get to in a minute.
Yeah.
The broad story around this, though, is that this is what NBN Co plans to do over the next couple of years. They've detailed where they plan to build out fibre to the premises, where they plan to build out fibre to the node, their multi-technology mix, where they plan to do fixed wireless. But it's all subject to them actually getting deals done with Telstra and Optus. Telstra more so than Optus, of course, because Telstra controls the copper that they're going to need for the fibre to the node implementation. There are some suggestions and swirling rumours that this might happen before Christmas. What's very, very clear, however, is that when Malcolm Turnbull was saying that he expected the deal to be done with Telstra very rapidly upon the last change of government, he was talking out of his fundament because it still hasn't been done.
Yes, and he was saying it would be done by mid-year, yeah.
Yeah, and these things take ages. The previous one, the one where they were going to decommission the copper, we were going to go full fibre to the premises, that took ages. He quite rightly jumped on it and said, oh, but they're taking ages to get this done. Well, now he's in the communication minister's big chair, and basically the penny stops with him. But in this case, he's you know, grabbing the penny, pinching it at both ends and making copper wire out of it, it seems.
And buying lots of tin cans. I can't hear you.
Yeah,
Speak
absolutely.
up. Speak up.
Absolutely. And I mean, if you're Telstra or Optus, you are in the commanding position.
Oh, yeah, you're laughing.
You know,
what are you going to do?
If they don't buy the copper, what are they going to do?
Yeah.
The new rollout plan really isn't a big surprise. It's about 25% of Australian premises, roughly speaking, are due to get fibre to the premises. Largely, that covers a lot of stuff they were already doing. And
not very many people. If you weren't already getting it, you're very unlikely to be getting it now.
Yeah, still there are some big kind of gaps and problems with the whole strategy, and the biggest of which is the HFC stuff. Loosely speaking, if you're in an area where Foxtel or Optus cable goes past or has gone past or can go past, then you're not getting anything. You're not getting anything at all. You're not even on the current plan. But the idea is that they're going to buy out all the HFC stuff that was laid down in the 90s, and that's going to become your NBN. Now, there's a couple of problems with this, of course. Speaking as someone who's actually on cable at the moment, and you know, I freely admit there are people who have far, far worse connections than mine. The actual experience can be blazingly fast, and it can be absolutely hideous. Yep. They're promising to spend up big to actually rectify this, put in some infrastructure at the back end and open it up to a bit of competition. That'll be nice, but I'm not overly optimistic about it.
That's where I don't trust them, is that what they're going to do is go back, because a lot of houses, a lot of streets, if the cable runs down the street, not every house can have it. Or if it's multiple dwellings on the one block, maybe only the first house gets it. What they're going to say is they're going to go back and connect all those ones they missed, and it will roughly triple the number of houses or the number of premises on the cable. And they're saying that, and they have put aside money to upgrade the cable. And people like Simon Hackett agree that if they spend the money and do it properly, that HFC cable can be roughly as good as fibre to the premises for all those people. If they cut corners, it won't be. And this is the government that's been saying near enough is good enough for the last few years. So I don't have a lot of confidence in them to spend the money to do it right. When the minimum download speeds may be 25 megabits per second, you might be getting 100 megabits per cable out of your cable now, or your neighbours get on and your speeds drop. Oh, you're still above the minimum, stiff shit. So I'd be a bit nervous if I was one of those people.
I mean, Hackett's an interesting one because there's two kind of big problems there. I mean, he's admitted that, look, fibre to the premises is still where the game should be.
It is still his preferred option, yes.
But also, you've got issues, and this is purely anecdotal. You were kind of mentioning, you know, houses where it wasn't connected up and they'll connect it up. Well, that's one thing. But I'm in an area, and I admit this is purely anecdotal, but I'm willing to strongly bet that I'm not the only one. I'm in an area which is predominantly cabled. But there are some side streets that are not cabled at all. And you're talking maybe 15 houses, maybe less. Now, what you're then talking about is, do you run like a fibre to the node app just for those guys? Because they've got copper, but that's it. Or do you get the HFC guys back in to run separate HFC cable? And how does that work? There's all this kind of unanswered stuff around HFC. There's all this untested stuff. I mean, what they did with the NBN, and I'm not going to defend NBN Co entirely because I think there has been mismanagement in the past, but one of the things that they did, and they got criticised for it by Turnbull, and I don't think it was entirely fair, and I think he knew this, was they ran lots of tests. Most of their early sites were slow rollout while they tested stuff. Now, Turnbull's had to do some of this stuff himself. He's looked at fibre to the basement. He made a lot of noise about the fibre to the node stuff they did up at Yamina on the New South Wales North Coast, but they fudged around the figures of whether or not,
it's great when you look at the right numbers,
Yeah, when there's only a couple of people on the wire, it's perhaps not so bad.
Yeah.
But the thing is, they did all this testing. You're going to need to do a lot of that again. And if you're going to upgrade the HFC, you're going to need to do a lot of that again. That slows things down again. Now, again, to be fair, the people in HFC areas at least have access to what can be passable speeds for now. And this is the other problem. Hackett's basically said, yes, you can make HFC, so it's nearly as good as fibre to the premises is right now. But the upside for fibre to the premises is a heck of a lot better in 5, 10, 20 years' time.
100 megabits is the starting point,
And that's where all of this stuff falls over. And that's where I lose an awful lot of faith in it. Because even their own review, which said, well, yes, fibre to the premises would be more expensive. Well, yeah, duh, it would. Basically didn't come out with that great a financial difference between the two when you factor in the idea of, well, at some point we're going to have to go up to fibre to the premises. And I know a lot of people fall back on the, oh, well, wireless will be better by then. Well, no, sorry, it won't.
Never.
It won't.
The laws of physics are against you. Yes.
Yeah.
The laws of physics are against you. You can never give blanket coverage to a suburb or a city via wireless the way you can via cable, unless you want to put a tower on every corner. It's just physics doesn't work that way, and some people don't seem to see it that way. Just because you might get faster speeds over next G, wait until every person standing within 5 kilometres of you tries to do that at the same time. If you've ever been to the MCG to the grand final and tried to use your phone,
there while everyone's waiting for a plane, and you'll get that exact scenario.
Go to the footy finals and try to use your phone and see what happens. That's what would happen if they tried to get rid of cable rollouts and just use wireless.
That's it for another episode of Vertical Hold, but don't fear, we'll be back in a fortnight's time.
And if you like what you see, hit the subscribe button.